There are a lot of ideas on how do we get to mastery, right? And they all sort of come down to a lot of delayed gratification, willpower, a lot of self-control, a lot of, I'm going to be miserable for a really long time and I'm going to grind it out. And if you look at action adventure sport athletes, for example, or artists or, people who have a lot of flow in their life, that is not the approach they take at all. They take a much more playful approach. And the interesting thing is because their approach generates more flow. So I won't go into a whole lot of neuroscience here, but underneath a flow state, one of the things that happens is the brain releases 5 or 6 of the most potent feel-good neurochemicals we can get our hands on, one of which is dopamine. We mentioned it a second ago. Flow is the only time you get this cocktail of feel-good drugs, which means flow is the most addictive state on earth, right? It feels amazingly good. That drives motivation. That's fantastic, which, drives you farther and faster along the path towards mastery. But equally important, a quick shorthand for learning and memory and mastery is that the more neurochemicals that show up during an experience, the better chance that experience has of moving from short-term holding into long-term storage. One of the things neurochemicals do is they're sort of big neon signs over experiences saying, really important, save for later, right? Flow's this giant cocktail, get big neurochemical dump as a result. As a result, learning goes through the roof. You get massively accelerated learning. In studies run by the US military, they found that snipers in flow, for example, learned target acquisition skills 500% faster than normal. A lot of other studies have backed this up. And what it suggests is that those fabled 10,000 hours to mastery, the science shows that flow can cut it in half. So not only do you can be a lot less miserable along the way, and you can get there a lot faster.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then the important point you make, and you quote Shane McConkey, who's got that great quote that you share of, if you're doing what you love to do all the time, then you're happy. You're not going to work every day wishing you're doing something else. I get up and go to work every day and I'm stoked. That does not suck. Right? Where
That's
there
so Shane, by the way. That does not suck. It's such a Shane statement.
you brought him to life so well in the book. Um, where, as you said, and as Maslow says, right, the dichotomy between work and play dissolves. Of what am I doing right now? Am I working or am I playing? And there's no delay of the gratification because we're entering the most amazing state possible. And as you said, it makes our desire to jump into it. I think the phrase you used was feverish compulsion, right? Where there's no delayed gratification. The path is what we most enjoy doing, which also happens to accelerate the whole process of mastery, right?
And you got to think about how important this really is across all walks of society. We're talking about action adventure sport athletes, but a recent Gallup survey found that 83% of American workers are disengaged or actively disengaged on the job. So 4 out of 5 of us hate what we do with the majority of our time. The remainder have jobs that produce flow, show up early, stay late, can't wait to be at work, love the experience, the high performers every organization wants to build on, and the high performers every person really wants to be.
Amen. So the question again becomes, well, how do we get into that, right? And I think that you talk a lot about reframing things as well in the context of impossible, et cetera, and just the idea of you can reframe. You don't need to follow these other alternate paths to mastery. You just need to invest some energy into structuring your life such that flow is a more likely outcome for you more consistently, right?
I appreciate the soft sell. I mean, yes, you're absolutely correct, but it, what we have seen consistently over and over is the people who are best at this put flow at the absolute center of their lives. The corporations that are best at this, the organizations that are best at this, make flow kind of and producing more flow the primary. And let me kind of put some numbers around that so you can understand why. McKinsey did a 10-year study of top executives in flow, and they found that top executives are 500% more productive in flow than out of flow. That's a step function's worth of change. That's huge. So Patagonia, which is a company that has kind of built their corporate philosophy around flow, one of the ways they've done it is Patagonia is run by Yvon Chouinard, who is an ex-surfer and rock climber, and their corporate headquarters is right on the Pacific. And Yvon has a "Let My People Go Surfing" house policy, which means whenever the waves are up, anybody, anywhere in Patagonia, it doesn't matter if you're in the middle of a meeting, you can walk out, you can go surfing. Why? Because it doesn't matter if you take 2 hours off and go surfing, you're going to come back and be 500% more productive.
If what you've heard on Flow Research Collective Radio has been helpful, please consider doing us a solid and leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this. Reviews help us connect to a wider audience so we can get these peak performance principles out to more people.